What's going on, bottom line viewers? It's Mitch here for your week number 10 start and sit fantasy football. We are here to talk some start and sit, and usually I record these videos and send them out to you guys for you to ask questions in the comment section. But instead this week, didn't have enough time to actually complete a video, edit the video, post the video. So I decided, why not? Let's try it live. Let's do it live. And I'm going to answer as many questions as I possibly can. So make sure that you ask your question in the live comments on the side of the video. Check that out. Log into your account. Ask your questions. And I will get to them as soon as I can. Now, if you guys have already posted your questions, this is going to be the plan. I am going to answer the people's questions that have already asked questions before the video even started. I did send a tweet out. I sent a couple things out for people to get their questions in before I went live. So if you asked your questions before I went live, I'm going to do the due diligence of going and answering your questions right now. And then I'm going to get to my start and sits. And then for the people that ask it during the video, I am going to answer your questions at the end of the video. And then I'll take as much time as I possibly can to answer all of your questions at the end of the video. So let's start off by answering the people's questions that asked the questions first before the video started. Starting off with Gaiman to their 56. He says, should I start Mariota or Wentz? Definitely Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz is on a roll. He is one of my starts of the week this week at the quarterback position. And Marcus Mariota, you can't trust him to have two good games in a row. He's only had two startable fantasy games this season. So I would go with Carson Wentz. Who's on a roll, and he's at home, and he's on Sunday Night Football. So I would go with Carson Wentz. Mr. Wong says, morning. What's going on, man? Morning to you as well. Tyrell Williams or Adam Humphries flex. I would go with Tyrell Williams. I think he should have probably a couple big catches in this game. They are playing the Raiders, who suck. And Adam Humphries, I think, not saying that it was a fluke last week, but I think that was more in garbage time. I don't really necessarily see that being the case this week. I think he'll be okay this week, Adam Humphries, but I don't think he has quite the potential of Tyrell Williams and the big playability and the touchdown ability of Tyrell Williams. I think that the Redskins will do a little bit better against Humphries this week. Mr. Wong says Taylor, Gabriel, or Anthony Miller. I would have to go with Taylor Gabriel there. I just think he gets more touches, he gets more receptions in general, and he's probably looked at as the #1 receiver right now for the Bears, even with Allen Robinson there. So I'd probably go with Taylor Gabriel. Plus, there's more potential for big plays with Taylor Gabriel as opposed to Anthony Miller. While I think Anthony Miller is a bright young player with a big future, I think Taylor Gabriel is probably the better guy right now. Gaiman also asks, who should I start, Allen Robinson or Calvin Ridley? For me, I would go Calvin Ridley. I think Robinson is banged up. He is actually one of my sits this week, so I'd go with Calvin Ridley against the Browns. What else we got? Mark says, Doyle or Njoku standard. I love it when people put standard as STD because it looks like the Njoku has an STD. But anyways, Doyle or Njoku, I would go, that's tough. I would probably go Njoku. Not by a lot, though. I think that's a pretty close one. That's a good question. I would go Njoku, though. I think he'll bounce back this week against Atlanta. Atlanta, as I always say, they have good corners. They can cover with their corners, even though their defense hasn't been playing as great. But they've been playing a little bit better recently. I do think that Njoku should find some space against the linebacker safeties of Atlanta. They don't have Deion Jones quite yet, so I expect Njoku to have a pretty good game and a bounce-back game this week at home. What else we got? Jaquan says, who should I start running back to? Mike Davis or Duke Johnson? I would go Duke Johnson, assuming the league is, it's half PPR. I would still go Duke Johnson. I think Duke Johnson's one of the better starts this week. Atlanta has given up the most receptions to running backs this year, so that's the big difference maker for me. Plus, I think Seattle's going to have to be chasing points in this game against the Rams. That's not too promising for Mike Davis. While I think Davis will be a solid start without Carson there, I think Duke Johnson is a better one. Don't have a wide receiver 2, so I picked up Christian Kirk because A.J. Green is out. Is that an okay pick? I think that's an okay pick, but I don't think, it depends on who you have on the waiver wire. I think I would probably rather go with a guy like Taylor Gabriel. Christian Kirk is fine though. They're playing the Chiefs. It's not a bad pickup. Gaiman says Frank Gore or Duke Johnson. I would go Duke Johnson. OJ Howard or Evan Ingram. I would go OJ Howard. All right, so those are the people that asked it right before the video starts. So I'm going to get into my start and sits, and then as soon as I'm done my start and sits, I'll try and do it relatively quickly within 10 minutes, and then I'll get to your guys' questions. So keep asking your questions, and then once the questions start to fill up, I'll get to your questions, all right? If you haven't already, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you aren't already subscribed to the Bottom Line View. Let's start off with the quarterback starts. Jared Goff versus Seattle. Goff threw for 321 in Seattle in his first matchup. Yes, he threw 2 interceptions and only 1 touchdown, but this is the second matchup. Sean McVay at home. I expect this to be a better Sean McVay game plan, and they really moved the ball quite well. It was just those interceptions and turnovers that didn't really equate, but they still won the game. The touchdowns, I think, will follow in this game for Jared Goff, so start Jared Goff for Seattle. Russell Wilson versus the Rams. I expect this game to be sort of a shootout. Once again, and I do think without Chris Carson that more of the ball is going to be in Russell Wilson's hands. I think that even on the road, Russell Wilson should be able to make some plays down the field against the Rams, who've given up a lot of downfield plays. Carson Wentz, as I mentioned, versus Dallas, he's thrown for multiple touchdowns in 5 straight games. He's also averaging over 30 attempts, so that's promising. Dallas' defense hasn't been as good lately. Plus, I expect this game to be sort of a blowout for the Eagles. I think the Eagles are going to dismantle the Cowboys this week. Mitch Trubisky versus Detroit. This is not usually a guy I've said that, you know, has been a fantasy startable guy, but over the past 3 to 4 weeks, he's been pretty solid, minus last week. But the thing I like about Trubisky is that he can run the ball really well, and he gives you a nice floor. So if you're looking for a bye week replacement, Trubisky's a pretty good guy to go to, or if you're in a 2-quarterback league, or if you really don't like your matchup with your quarterback, either of the 3 options work. But Detroit, they don't have Slay this week, so that's big. And I think Trubisky can make some plays, deep plays down the field. And also, I think that the Bears will win this game, so that's good for Trubisky's sake. Okay, now you're going to hear this one. My waiver pickup of the week is going to be Mullins versus the Giants. I just really liked how composed he was last week. He really has a good understanding of the offense, and to me, that's the #1 thing you need if you're a 49ers Kyle Shanahan quarterback. He's smart, he's calm, he's confident, and he has Kyle. So I like it versus the Giants. I also don't mind Eli as well in that Monday Night Football matchup. So if you're not sure about your guy on Sunday, I'll look at one of those guys on Monday night. I think that game's going to be a shootout. So look out for one of those guys if you're in desperate need. Quarterback sits, Prescott versus Philadelphia. The Eagles have held quarterbacks like Matt Ryan, Andrew Luck, and Kirk Cousins all under 14 fantasy points. So at home, the Eagles are really good defensively. The Cowboys have struggled on the offensive line, and Dak Prescott struggled in general. So I expect the Eagles to keep Dak to a very low yardage total and not a lot of fantasy points. Marcus Mariota versus New England. We brought it up. 2 great weeks for Mariota in a row is very doubtful. We haven't seen that yet this year, and we might have not even seen that last year either. He's had 2 startable games this year in fantasy. You just can't count on him. Plus, New England's defense has played better, so I expect the Titans to probably have a pretty hard time to score in this game. Alex Smith versus Tampa Bay. His offensive line is an absolute mess for Washington, and he also lost one of his top receivers. Yes, Tampa Bay is a terrible defense, but I just can't trust Alex Smith in fantasy this year. He hasn't put up any great games. Andy Dalton versus New Orleans. Without A.J. Green, I don't trust Andy Dalton. I know that New Orleans is 31st versus the pass, but I don't really care because Dalton, I just can't trust it without A.J. Green. He has Tyler Boyd, but, I mean, who really else does he have? So the Saints are good at forcing turnovers. I expect this could be a Dalton turnover fest. I don't know. Stafford versus Chicago. Quarterbacks average an 83.2 passer rating in Chicago. Chicago's good in Chicago, and they're one of the best defenses in the NFL. Plus, the Mac is back. Running back starts, Duke Johnson versus Atlanta. Johnson led the team in receptions with 9 on 9 targets last week. Atlanta is also allowing the most receptions to running backs with 68 on the season. Leonard Fournette versus Indy. He's expected to be full go, full touch load, whatever, full carry load. So Fournette is ready to go versus Indianapolis. This is a must-win game for the Jaguars. I expect them to come out and play hard. Lewis versus New England. Lewis, this is a revenge game for him, and he's clearly ahead of Derrick Henry in the backfield. Even if the Pats do blow them out in this game, which might happen, he's still going to get plenty of catches because he is their pass catching back. This is another thing I like about Lewis and the reason why I traded for him in one of my leagues. He's much game script proof because he is the pass catcher and he also is the lead back. So Lewis is a nice guy to have right now. Aaron Jones versus Miami. 14 total touches in 2 consecutive games. Plus, I really like him. He's very efficient. And even last week, he was very efficient versus New England. They just stopped running the ball. They just need to give him the ball a little bit more and just need to run the ball a little bit more. The Finns are allowing the 6th most fantasy points to opposing running backs as well, so this should be a nice day for Jones. Jordan Howard has 4 touchdowns in the past 3 outings. He's facing a Lions defense that has allowed a running back to either score or gain at least 100 total yards in 7 of the last 8 games. So I like Jordan Howard this week. I expect the Bears to be able to run the ball on their home field. Running back sits. Kerryon Johnson versus the Bears. I've been disappointed with Kerryon Johnson recently in both production standpoint and just in general. The Bears have yet to allow a touchdown to running backs on the ground this year, so that's not a good thing. And also, Chicago has allowed just 1 running back to gain over 60 yards this year. So pretty impressive run defense for the Bears. Henry versus the New England Patriots. Last playoffs, he was held to 12 carries and 28 yards in the divisional round, so that's not great. And also what I said about Lewis. Lewis is the man right now. Martin versus the Chargers. The Chargers have allowed just 1 touchdown to running back since week 3, and I don't expect them to really be running the ball a lot because they're probably going to be losing by a lot of points. Barber versus Washington. Washington is a top 5 run defense in the NFL, and Barber struggled last week. He's had a couple of games here and there, but I just don't expect it against Washington. I expect them to pass the ball quite well, and that will be their game plan. Smallwood versus Dallas. The Cowboys allow a league-low 1.9 yards per carry before first contact this season. So Cowboys really good at getting penetration against offensive lines. And Smallwood, he's probably the best guy to start on the Eagles. That's why I have him on here. I'm not going to just put like some bum just to put him on the list. But Smallwood, I think if you're, if you need him as a flex, I don't like him much more than a flex though. I expect the Eagles to be able to pass the ball a little bit better in this game than run the ball. So going to the wide receiver starts, Josh the Flash Gordon versus Tennessee. They have allowed 9 scores to wide receivers lined up on the outside, and they've also allowed almost 30 PPR points to those receivers as well. Titans corners, Logan Ryan and Malcolm Butler, specifically Malcolm Butler, has struggled this season. Larry Fitzgerald has averaged 10 targets his last 2 games, and I expect him to have another good game here against Kansas City because there should be a lot of garbage time for him. Deshawn Jackson versus the Redskins, another revenge game. They have allowed 9 touchdowns, like the Tennessee Titans, to wide receivers lined up on the outside. Deshawn Jackson lines up on the outside 80% of the time. Tyler Boyd, he's playing the Saints, and yes, I don't like Andy Dalton, but I like Tyler Boyd because this game should rather be a shootout or a blowout for the Saints. So that being said, it bodes well for Boyd either way. So, and also the Saints have surrendered 8 touchdowns to slot receivers and the most PPR points to opposing receivers on the road. Valdez-Scantling, a guy that you really want on your team heading into the playoffs. Valdez-Scantling is the number 2 receiver for the Packers right now. And as far as I understand, throughout Rodgers' career, that receiver has finished as basically a wide receiver 2 throughout the course of Rodgers' career. And he's either scored a touchdown or 100 receiving yards in the last 4 games. And the Finns also have a lot of injuries in the secondary. So pretty good matchup for Valdez-Scantling. Golden Tate versus Dallas. I just don't know about him after this trade. I want to see his role. Apparently, they're going to try and line him up as many spots as they can. But I want to see that before it happens. So if you don't have to start Tate, then don't start him. But if you do have to start him, then start him. Like it's kind of like a warning sign. It's not necessarily like a sit, but Matthews and Aguilar are definitely similar receivers who play the slot role a lot. So they'll probably take some catches away from him in this game at the very least. I expect Tate to be decent moving forward. I'm just not sure about this game. Davis versus New England. He's playing Stephon Gilmore, who is a shutdown corner. And, right now I think he's 5th Pro Football Focus. And Davis, you know, he might see a few targets here and there, but I just don't expect him having a ton of success. Hilton versus Jacksonville. This is another one. You know, he's a good player, so he could still have a good game, but he is playing Jalen Ramsey, and Jalen Ramsey's tough. I think, you know, he hasn't been super impressive since his hamstring injury, so I'm not expecting a ton from Hilton this week, but he should have good weeks moving forward. Nelson versus the Chargers. The Raiders just suck. I don't want to say anything else. The Chargers secondary is pretty good too. Robinson versus Detroit. I just don't think he's healthy. He is a third or fourth target right now for Chicago if you're including Tariq Cohen, Gabriel, Anthony Miller is in there as well, and also Trey Burton. I mean, all these guys are getting equal share. So Robinson, an injured Robinson, isn't the best guy to start in your lineup. Tight end starts. Watson versus the Bengals. The Bengals have allowed 3 tight ends to score or gain at least 95 receiving yards. Nick Vannett versus the Rams. The Rams' weakness has been versus the pass. Specifically at times versus tight ends, certain teams have taken advantage of that. I could see Vannett having a nice, good game if you're in need of a tight end. Maybe you have Gronk and you need to start a tight end off the waiver wire. Him or Ricky Seals-Jones is another option if you're desperate. David Njoku versus Atlanta. Vernon Davis went off in the second half versus them last week. Njoku should have an equal opportunity here in a bounce-back game. Uzoma, or whatever you say his name, versus New Orleans. His target share should go up because he's probably the number 2. He's probably the number 2 receiver right now because I know a lot of people are going to say John Ross, but, I mean, has John Ross done anything in his NFL career yet? So, Tyler Boyd, and then you have somebody to step up, and I think it's going to be their tight end. Jack Doyle versus Jacksonville. He's a lot of people's sleeper this week. He's played 73% last week for the Colts, and he led the team in snaps for that position over Eric Ebron. He also had 7 targets, which led the team. I expect him to have another decent game here because Jacksonville is susceptible to slot receivers and tight ends, not necessarily outside receivers. So those are the starts and sits for this week in the NFL, week number 10. And now we'll get back to your questions. DC MMA asks, Ridley or Larry Fitzgerald? I would go Ridley. Gaiman says Frank Gore, Duke Johnson. Duke Johnson. Turtle says, will Sony Michel play? If so, he's supposed to play. Like, probably play. So that's like an 80% chance he will play. If so, him or Ingram? I would probably say Sony. Nathan says, start Mayfield or Trubisky? I would go Trubisky. Flamer says Keenan Allen, Cup, or Woods? Keenan Allen. New Life says pick 3 standard. James White, Zeke, Chubb. Okay, Zeke. Ooh. You kind of have to start James White, don't you? I mean, the guy is a machine, even if it's standard. So Zeke, White, and I would go Chubb and Mac is tough. I would go Chubb probably because I think the game I just have this feeling this week Jacksonville is going to have like a big game. I don't know why. Like I know everyone like hates them right now, but I would go Chubb. So I would go James White, Zeke, and Chubb. Coach says Sony, Kerryon Johnson, or Breida. I would go Sony Michel. DC says Nick Chubb or Larry Fitzgerald. Nick Chubb. Who's your top 3 running backs this week? I would go. Let me look up just the schedule real quick. But I would go Melvin Gordon, number 1 probably. Let me look schedule just so I don't miss anyone. I would go probably Melvin Gordon, number 1, probably Todd Gurley, number 2, and number 3. It's between Kamara and Hunt. I would probably say, yeah, probably between those 2. I would probably go Kamara. Yeah. No. Yeah, no. It's one of those 2. Probably 3 and 4. They're tied. Let's say they're tied. New Life says Jack Doyle or Jimmy Graham. I would go, tough. Jimmy Graham is playing Miami. Jack Doyle is playing Jacksonville. I think Jack Doyle has more opportunity, so I would probably go Jack Doyle. but Jimmy Graham has the chance for probably more likely to score a touchdown. I would probably go Jack Doyle if it's a PPR. If it's standard, I would go Jimmy Graham. Okay, what else do we have? I'm losing my track on here. Predator says, start him and kiss him. Joe says, what's up? Third receiver, Edelman or Jeffrey? Thank you. And Golladay on the bench. I would go, Byron Jones is good, but I do like the Eagles this week. I do think Malcolm Butler will be covering Edelman, so I sort of do like Edelman as well. If you're looking for more upside, I would go Jeffrey. If you're looking for a guy that's sort of a little safer, I would probably go Edelman. Jeffrey generally is higher than Edelman. I gotta remove my bias and say Jeffrey, but I think both of them are good starts this week. So I would go Jeffrey, especially at third receiver, because if you have two guys that are better than those two guys, then I would assume probably the high upside guy would be the better pick. So I would go Jeffrey. Artie says, why in football isn't it a complete pass if on a punt is caught by the punting team? Why is it different than throwing? Because you're punting the ball to the other team. So it's not a complete pass because you can't gain yardage on that play. If you understand that. Marquise Goodwin or Doug Baldwin? Ooh. I would say Baldwin. Not by a lot, though. Again, if you're looking for a guy that's going to score a 90-yard touchdown, Marquise Goodwin. If you're looking for a guy to get 6 catches, probably Baldwin. Jay says Sony's traveling with the team, but I hope they don't play him until after the bye. I've been very patient this season dealing with players' injuries. Sony owner. As a Patriots fan, Sony was supposed to play last week. Like, he could have played, I should say, not supposed to play, but he could have played. So assuming that they gave him the week off last week, I assume that it's okay to play him this week. For Gronk's sake, I would say sit Gronk if you're the Patriots, and I assume they are going to do that. TJ Yeldon or Corey Clement? Ooh, TJ Yeldon. That's a tough spot. Nick, do I drop Breida or Fitzgerald to pick up a kicker? I would say Fitzgerald because the reason why is because Mostert is now injured and probably not going to be back for a couple of weeks. Plus I would rather start Breida in a majority of games over Fitzgerald. So I'd probably say get rid of Fitzgerald. Predator says, because you do not pass with your feet. There you go, Predator. Do you not have a kicker? Yeah, that's a good one. Turtle, drop your current kicker. If you already have a kicker and you're trying to keep 2 kickers, never keep 2 kickers. So drop your current kicker. Matt says, stay away from Philadelphia running backs. Joe says, don't drop Breida if he holds up. He's a good running back. There you go. Matt says, got a trade offer today. Give away Golladay and get Aaron Jones. What's your team like? Do you have good running backs, good receivers? I would probably say Golladay has a tough schedule going forward, but in general, I would say he's probably the better guy to have. But I do like Aaron Jones. So assuming you need a running back, I would probably do the trade. Turtle says, I'm playing against a stupid Falcons fan who drafted all Falcons players in the first 5 of 6 rounds. Well, good luck. New Orleans defense or Jaguars defense? Ooh. Those are both tough because you're sort of counting on turnovers in both cases. And because of the track record of New Orleans on the road, I would have to say Jacksonville, but it's not by a lot. Like, again, this is a guy that thinks Jacksonville's going to beat the Colts, so I would probably go Jacksonville. But, New Orleans could have a couple interceptions, so I would say flip a coin, but I'd probably go Jacksonville because as much as Luck is a baller, he'll also throw you the ball a couple times. So I'd probably go Jacksonville. Artie says, I saw the punting team catch a punt before. What is with all these punt questions? DC says Duke Johnson or Nick Chubb. Duke Johnson, in my opinion. Bold, but Duke Johnson. Fournette going to get injured again. Well, I hope not. Should I drop Le'Veon Bell? No. If you have a reserve spot, then put him on the reserve. If you don't have a reserve spot, try and trade him. And if you can't trade him, maybe drop him. But just wait until next week when it's official that he's not coming back, and then drop him. What else? Saints, Chargers, or Eagles D? I would say Eagles. Turtle says, doesn't matter. He doesn't pass it. Marlon Mac. Okay, Marlon Mac. I'm a little disappointed with carry on as well as the usage. Sammy Watkins, unlikely to play today versus the Cardinals. All right, thanks for the info. No. If Njoku is out, should I drop him to make room on my bench? I have OJ Howard and Ingram. I would rather own Njoku than Ingram. So that's the answer to your question, I guess. I would not keep 3 tight ends, though. I'd advise against that. I think I do in one league because I have Gronk, but that's a different story. How about Edelman? Edelman's a good start. I'm upset. I could have got Kamara, Gordon, Ingram, and Barkley, but I had to get Le'Veon Bell. I know that sucks. What else? Boyd or Jeffrey? I guess Boyd. Boyd, but that's tough again. I don't like sitting Jeffrey. If you're sitting Jeffrey in a league, that's probably a good sign. You probably have a pretty good team. Thoughts on Austin Hooper? He should have a good game. Mac or Ingram? PPR. You guys are killing me with these questions. Mac, only because he sees more touches, but it's close. I can't wait till the games today. Games will be good today. It's not the best week ever, but there's some good games. James White is a lock, says Matt. Chubb or Mac, I agree. Fitz Magic or Luck? You got to go Luck. You just have to. Daniel says, hey, man, Jordan Howard or Cohen? I would say Cohen, but I like both. Tate or Kirk? Tate. Oh, geez. Just skip down a bunch. Go Dolphins for the Super Bowl. Good luck with that. What else? Allen Robinson or Duke? Duke. Rams will have a good day on offense. Yep. True. What else we got? Jared Goff or Patrick Mahomes? You got to go Patrick Mahomes. Melvin versus the Raiders. Yep, he's number 1. Peterson or Sony? Sony. Tom Brady or Drew Brees? Drew Brees. Galladay or Traquan? Galladay. Who should you start, Davis or AP? Wait. Who would you start? Mike Davis over AP so I can free up my flex for either Gabriel, Moore, or Anunwa. I don't quite understand what you mean there. I would start Adrian Peterson out of all those guys. If that's the question. I'm not quite sure the question. Do you have, is it Davis or AP and then Gabriel, Moore, or Anunwa? In that case, I would pick AP and Gabriel. Nathan says Breida or Djax. Woo! Again, this is another one of those technicalities. If you need a safer play, I would go Breida. But if you're going big, go big or go home, go Djax. I agree with the Gronk statement. Should I start the Chiefs defense? Definitely. Gaiman says, this is what my starts are looking like. Carson Wentz, Tyreek Hill, Calvin Ridley, Tariq Cohen, Duke Johnson, Jordan Reed, Cooper Kupp, Robbie Gould, Jags defense. Looks like a decent week for you. Good luck. I am not from Boston, no. I'm in Toronto right now. I'm from Vancouver, though. Ace says, I'm actually in a 3-receiver set. Would you start D. Moore or Anunwa? David, I'm assuming, because DJ already played. Ugh. That's like I guess more because the Rams, just thinking in my head here, the Bills' defense is actually pretty good, guys. I know the Bills suck, but their defense is pretty good. As for David Moore, I mean, he should get some big plays against the Rams. So if you're hoping for one to kind of have a big play, then I guess it would be Moore. Should I start Marlon Mac or Joe Mixon? Joe Mixon. Njoku or OJ? I would go OJ. Pick 3 to start. Hill, Ridley, Allen Robinson. Okay, that's easy. Hill, Ridley, and Cup. I would go Hooper probably. I don't want to skip too far. See, this is the problem with the stupid YouTube format. I have to like scroll down, but it doesn't really let me scroll down. It like skips to the end. What games are we streaming? We're not streaming today. But we are doing a recap of Sunday Night Football, most likely. At the very least, Dylan will be on, and I will probably be on as well. And Monday Night Football for sure. Davis or AP? AP, I think. Roland says Nick Chubb or Marlon. Standard. I really like Marlon Mac right now. And Roland, you're killing me with this question because I don't like getting these wrong. I like giving you guys the best information possible. Chubb. He's more. I think he's more likely to score a touchdown. Capri Bibbs against Tampa or Tyrell Williams. Ooh. I think is Thompson playing, because that's a big. I don't even know this. Like, check if Thompson is playing, play Williams. If he's not, play Bibbs. I don't think whenever the Patriots play their running back, they're not usually limited, but I'll continue to read your question. I have Adrian Peterson as running back 2 and Edelman and flex right now. I could change it up. What combo would you do? I would do Edelman and Sony, personally. Anybody, Fitzmagic against the Skins defense or Breeze? Definitely Breeze. Nick Chubb or Sony? Probably, like in general, I like Sony more, but Chubb is safer. So take that as you will. Anthony Miller or Traquan? Assuming Allen Robinson plays, probably Traquan. My line, well, I want you to beat Dilly. So my lineup against Dilly today: Breeze, Michelle, Chubb, Mike Thomas, Keenan Allen. You're gonna win. Gaiman says Sterling Shepard or Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley. Gaiman says I love your streams. Thank you. I started Curtis Samuel and Carolina's defense. I make bad decisions. Hey man, I thought that the Panthers were gonna score some points too, so it's not just your fault. Ghost Skittle says Dilly's lineup, Mullins. Yeah, he has Mullins. So Ricky Seals Jones. Yeah, he's stretching there. His team isn't very good, but somehow he flukes it off. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you guys have any last questions, I'll answer them if you have, like, just put them in right now. I'll answer them right now. I'm about to leave. So I hope you guys enjoyed this live stream. If you did, hit the like button. If you haven't already, subscribe to The Bottom Line View. It's Mitch of The Bottom Line View. Tune into our recap tonight, Sunday Night Football, Eagles, Dallas. It's promising to be a very entertaining one, as Dilly Vanilli is frustrated about his Dallas Cowboys. And also, tomorrow we have the greatest game of all time. We have the San Francisco 49ers versus the New York Giants. So tune into that as well. Kenny Stills or Calvin Ridley? Ridley. Gronk is not going to play this week, most likely, so don't play him. Thank you guys for joining me. It's Mitch of The Bottom Line View. Peace. Good luck this week, guys.